This is a Barbie Oppenheimer double feature. We are going to start with Barbie. It is starring Margot Robbie as Barbie and Ryan Gosling as Ken and a whole bunch of other Kens and a whole bunch of other Barbies. They live in Barbie land and everything is going so perfect and so great. And, you know, until all of a sudden at this little dance awesome thing that they do every single day, Barbie's just like, hey, you ever think about dying? And everybody's like, what? Dying? Death? What?
Do you guys ever think about dying?
Right. And then that's where the story kicks in.
So yeah, this movie is directed by Greta Gerwig, and when I first saw the trailers, I was like, is this really a Greta Gerwig movie? Because she makes some, I don't want to call them feminist movies, but movies that focus more on the lives of women through the lens of a woman, right? We see the lives of women all the time, but usually it's through the eyes of a man.
You should just go to city college. You know, with your work ethic, just go to city college and then to jail and then back to city college, and then maybe you'd learn to pull yourself up and not expect everybody to do everything.
When I saw the marketing with the pink shirts and all this stuff, I was like, do they know what they're getting into? Because I didn't think a lot of people knew what this was. And then I got worried. I was like, well, maybe they got the leash on Greta. I'm happy to report ain't no leash on Greta. Greta is doing her thing. She is in her bag. This movie, straight off the top, I'll say this is my favorite movie of the year so far. I'm pretty confident this will end up being the best movie of the year, period. I can't, you know, I don't see what's gonna happen next. But the reason why I liked it so much, despite all the things about it that I think I would usually hate, right? It's based off a toy. It does feel like a big marketing push to make everybody go buy Mattel stuff. You know, these are things that I typically don't like. But the fact that they use that as kind of a starting point to make a larger point, a larger message about women's role in society today, I thought that was freaking inspired. So personally, I thought this was a fantastic film. Very creative.
I'm not going to call it the best film of the year for me, but I was entertained. I did enjoy a lot of the comedy. I did enjoy the message in here, but I did also enjoy the through message. The through message of who am I? You know, and who am I in this world of Barbie land, but also who am I in the real world?
For me, I thought the through line was the patriarchy is bad. And not only is it bad for women, they take an extra step that I never would have expected them to take. But they said the patriarchy is not only bad for women, but it's bad for men too. Like, no one wins in this system except for the guys at the top, the tippy top. And this is obviously portrayed by Will Ferrell. Hilariously, he's the CEO of Mattel. Everything's working out great for him. But
money, baby.
For literally everyone else, for all the Barbies, all the Kens, all the real people, all the kids, this system does not work. I liked how once Barbie could see the world, once she could see what was actually going on, it was hard for her to play her role. It's like, how do you continue to be this so-called perfect person, this perfect woman, when you know the entire world is literally built against you? And one thing I like about that is it's like, that's real. We're gonna view another movie later this week called They Clone Tyrone. And they deal with very similar themes. When you can lift the veil and you can actually see the world for what it is, how can you continue to function? There's even a sequence about that where Ken goes back to Barbie Land and he tries to turn it back into Ken Land, right?
Yeah.
And the Barbies just kind of, they went along with it because they didn't have any defense against that. Once they realized what was going on, they were freaking appalled. They're like, what am I wearing? Why am I wearing this? Why am I doing this? This is not what I want to do. And that is, again, as a black person, once you can see the man behind the curtain, everything feels as fake as a Barbie house. I liked this movie a lot. I liked it because not only did they take this very tough, very serious subject matter and made it freaking funny. First of all, forgive the phrase, but that takes freaking gorilla balls to do that.
Gorilla balls.
But it was actually genuinely entertaining.
The actors in this film, Margot Robbie put on an amazing performance, and it's like she is bringing the tears in this thing. I was stuck in the middle between like a whole row of white women, and they were crying. They're like, oh my God.
Yeah. And again, like I said, I think this movie does something that a lot of movies don't do, and that they actually speak to women. Like most of them like speak at women. Like there's a funny scene in the film where they're like, where Ken's like, let's go to the beach so I can play the guitar at you, and I think that's how a lot of these movies speak to women, right? They're really more like blasting stupid shit at them, right? But to actually be acknowledged, I felt a similar way when I saw Black Panther for the first time and they flew into Wakanda. And I never realized that I'd never seen a world where it was only black people, right?
Right.
I'd never seen this, and we were thriving. I didn't know, and I never realized how much. I didn't realize at the time how much that affected me to see that.
Ryan Gosling, man,
Right.
Not just only his comedic timing when he's realizing what he's done, he was very remorseful for it, and then he was just like, "But who am I without you?"
Right. Because Ken, they said early on, Barbie has a good day every day. But Ken only has a good day if Barbie notices him. You know what I'm saying?
I just don't know who I am without you.
You're Ken.
But it's Barbie and Ken. There is no just Ken.
He literally is doing all this shit for Barbie's attention, and he never really thought about what is it that he actually likes. What is it that makes him, right? Because the patriarchy doesn't allow you to do these kind of things, right? So I thought it was really good. I was really surprised at how much screen time Ken got. I kind of thought Ken would be a secondary character, kind of in the background, but Ken is almost a co-star. And like you said, Ryan Gosling is a great actor, and I mean, he almost threatened to steal the movie from Margot Robbie at certain points, and which was completely surprising. But I think Ken's role was so vital. Just like I always say about racism, right? No one benefits from this shit, right? No one wins. Not even white people. They don't win either. They get hurt too. But in a patriarchal system, it hurts women and it hurts men. Ken literally had no role outside of what he could provide for Barbie, right? Outside of that, he didn't even know who he was. And I thought that was really, really important. And so not only was the movie speaking to women, but through Ken, I think it was speaking to people like you and me, to men. I always like movies with stuff on their mind. I get annoyed when movies do the same thing over and over and over again. We talked last week about how we literally saw the same stunt on the same stairs, in two different movies, in Mission Impossible and Fast and Furious. They just feel like they're just like, they have bankrupted ideas. But then every once in a while you get a movie like Barbie, which to me came out of nowhere with just flooding with ideas. For me, this is why I like movies, because they can say big things without it being in your face.
It definitely did say some big things. I do think that it was in your face in certain things, but with it being in your face, it doesn't bother a person like me because I'm not affected by it. I see it for art and what it is and what it's telling. Now, for it being in the face of people like, I hate to bring this name up, Ben Shapiro, and things like that, and people like that are gonna think that this is poking at them and stuff like that. People don't like being shown the realness of the world and stuff like that. They don't like that.
Ben Shapiro's a fucking idiot, right? He's an absolute imbecile. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people who follow him and listen to him, and he has managed to 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 scratch out a living, appealing to the lowest denominator, right? Appealing to your base, most emotional feelings, right? So you would only be upset about this movie if you know it's true, right? If you know everything they're saying is true. He doesn't go burn scissors after Edward Scissorhands, right? Because he knows it's a fictional thing, right? He only gets upset because it touched a nerve that he does not want to acknowledge is there. And I'm picking on Ben Shapiro because he's an asshole and I feel very safe doing that. But there are lots of people with that same mindset. And I imagine when they go see Barbie, they will probably be just as upset. And the movie freaking says it. They're like, you can't really deprogram these people, right? like once they're programmed to see it, right? It's very difficult to deprogram these people. There's no words I can say to make someone who won't like this kind of thing or refuses to see this kind of thing. There's nothing I can say. There's nothing I can do to convince them. All I can do is say, hey, good luck to you, bro, and just move on, right? I can't spend my life. I can't spend my life trying to make you see what's right in front of your face. I try not to let those people occupy too much mind space for me, because they're idiots. And what can you do? These guys are fools, right? And if you follow those guys, you're a fool too, right? And nothing I can do about it. Like, I'm sorry. Sorry. Good luck. when you fall off the cliff, what can I do? But this movie doesn't really concern itself with that. But for the guys or women that actually are open to hearing this kind of thing, it's there for you.
This movie had a lot on its mind. This movie had a lot of great shots by her, by the way, like the angles that she did, the camera movement that she did in this, just beautiful. Like the side scrolling where it shows the story of them going from Barbie land to the real world. Beautiful shots and stuff like this. And I can't say this enough. Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling did an amazing job in this film. It's not my favorite film of the year yet. There's still some more films coming out. But I'm gonna say this film is an A for me.
Yep, I'm giving this an A as well. As you know, Tyrone, I'm very hesitant to give A pluses, and I've gone back and forth as to whether or not I should give one for this. The only reason I'm not is because I've only seen it once. There's also some weird awkwardness in the movie where the movie talked about how the patriarchy promotes consumerism, and it's like that message is being brought to you by Mattel. You know what I'm saying? Like a literal corporation that wants you to consume their products, So I feel like that was kind of awkward. But other than that, I liked the big themes of this film. I liked how once you can see how strange and surreal it is to live in a patriarchal system, you can't unsee it. And I imagine for a woman watching this, that surrealness is very profound. It said a lot, it did a lot, and I think this movie is worthy of multiple viewings. And for me, that is fun. Another really funny thing about Barbie is they straight up name dropped Zack Snyder. They straight up said, I feel like I just got finished watching the Snyder Cut. I was like, holy shit. They straight up name dropped this man. Because not only are his movies a little funky, but his fan base in particular are the most toxic group of white guys in all of film. The only group more toxic than them are Christopher Nolan fans. So I just thought that was hilarious.
Oh, man.
I like heady movies that have a lot on their minds and they're not afraid to actually talk about it, which is interesting because that is literally the exact opposite of Oppenheimer.
We're in a race against the Nazis. And I know what it means if the Nazis have a bomb.
Oppenheimer. This is directed by Christopher Nolan and also written by Christopher Nolan. I've seen some of my friends online say that this is Christopher Nolan's best work. It's a masterpiece and things like that. But I'm honest, go out and say that I do not think this is his best work. I do believe that it is an astonishing film in moments, in segments. But to me, his best work is Interstellar, period.
I'm not a big fan of Interstellar because it's about love, and like Christopher Nolan seems like he's never met another human in his life, and it's so awkward and weird. And so some of those themes continue in this film too, where they try to get into Oppenheimer's personal life, and it's like two mannequins talking to each other. But personally, I think Christopher Nolan's best film was Memento. I don't think he's ever gotten better than that. That was literally like his big debut. Damn. I think he shot his wad 30 years ago or 20 years ago or whatever, and I don't think he's ever getting back. So for me, it's Memento.
Totally forgot about Memento, man.
It's
He had a life before The Dark Knight.
He did. He had a life before, and it was when I saw Memento, I was like, who is this dude? You know what I mean? I'm like, who is this guy? He came onto the scene like a damn explosion, you know? But for Oppenheimer, I know all the film nerds gonna get mad at me for saying this, but I think this is Christopher Nolan doing Christopher Nolan, man. He loves having white guys in suits standing in front of beige backgrounds talking monotone for 3 hours, and that's what we got here. We got a bunch of white guys in suits talking monotone in front of beige backgrounds. And I gotta say, I think Oppenheimer's story is very fascinating, but I was bored. I think this is a boring film. Like, there were moments, like you said, where we saw potential of a really good film here, but I thought it was boring, and I thought it was purposefully obtuse. Like, the movie will not let you grab it, right? Every time you think you understand what's going on, the movie jumps in time, right? It's like, now we're going back in time. Why?
Yeah,
now we're going forward in time. Why?
I am so annoyed with Christopher Nolan, because he's done it in Tenet also.
Yeah.
Where he is saying something and dialogue is running between 2 characters, 3 characters, whatever. And then they jump in to a part that was before it happened. Something where before it happened, it shows a character that Christopher Nolan's like, hey, remember this? Dude, you're like, telling me no, I don't. Because you didn't make it important then.
They're like, oh, we've got a mole inside Los Alamos. And they're like, and when it's finally revealed, I'm like, who the fuck is this? Who was the mole? And it took me a lot. The movie was still going, by the way, and I had to stop and try to remember. I'm like, oh, right. Okay. The Jewish guy who said he was British, that was the got you. There was literally one line referencing that human, and that human walked in front of the camera like this, and they just walked away, and like that, like, and I'm supposed to remember that, like, and again, everyone is speaking in monotone. So my issue with Christopher Nolan is, I think he thinks that being purposefully confusing is the same as being smart, right? So like, my issue, and I noticed this in Inception, right? There is no way to understand Inception the first time you go through. It's impossible. No, they withhold information that comes later, right? So you
to the very last 20 minutes of the film.
So the purpose of doing that is to confuse the audience, right? There's no other reason to do that. And it's the same thing here, where this movie jumps back and forward in time. It deals with different characters, and everyone is speaking really flat, monotone. Sometimes it's black and white, sometimes it's not. Sometimes the aspect ratio is IMAX, sometimes it's 16:9. Like, it's just all over the place, man. And while I imagine this looks very cool, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of gadgetry in order to make that happen, I think the ultimate effect is confusion. And I think if I'm confused after your movie's completed, if I'm still confused, you failed. Something you tried to communicate to me didn't get through. And that's kind of how I felt with, that's how I feel with almost all Christopher Nolan's movies. And that's kind of how I felt with Oppenheimer. And just because you don't get it doesn't mean you're not smart enough to get it. That means he did not give you key pieces of information.
What we're explaining to people is the dialogue in this, where Oppenheimer is talking to certain people, where he's talking to Strauss, it's so convoluted that you have to catch up every single scene. When he is going in between, black and white, which they had to make their own IMAX black and white film, which I heard, and then it goes right back to color. It's like, okay, so the color is what the audience is seeing, but the black and white is what what it was back in that time and what I'm saying, you know, and I'm like, well, who's supposed to actually get all that in the moment, in the time where the film is being shown? You know what I'm saying?
Is that entertaining? Like, wasn't entertaining to me. Like, I don't know. So I don't know.
Exactly. Now, it may seem like I'm bagging on all of this film. Some of the writing that I could listen to, I did like. About an hour and 10 minutes of this film was the preparation for the bomb. That hour and 10 minutes of preparation and the actual explosion, and then 2 hours and 50 minutes is all talking and court jargon. Okay?
Yeah.
Throughout the whole thing.
Sometimes I'm not even following what we're talking about sometimes.
If you're coming to this movie to see some freaking action-packed freaking explosion that's gonna blow your freaking mind, that explosion lasted anything but 30 seconds. Right. Okay, the props that I'm gonna give to this film, Cillian Murphy, amazing actor. He makes you believe that he is Oppenheimer. The regret that he has, that he goes through. Oppenheimer is having like a town hall with the people of the city, and he is envisioning an atom bomb going off right there and killing everyone right there. So he feels the guilt because the military just came, took those bombs and say, hey, we'll call you when we see you. You know, and there's an awesome line that Emily Blunt said when Florence Pugh was having an affair with Oppenheimer, and she's like, you said you'll always be there for me, and then she ended up committing suicide. And Emily Blunt is his wife, so she already knew that he was having an affair. He was a womanizer and everything. This line is really cool. She said, you can't create sins and complain about them later and have an effect on you. I'm like, oh, that is foreshadowing what he created later in the film with the bomb. Okay. And I was like, oh, I love that line. Thank you.
And like, what a shame for Emily Blunt and Florence Pugh. Holy crap. First of all, I'm straight up secondhand embarrassed for Florence Pugh in this film because she spends the bulk of the film butt naked. Talk about the opposite of Barbie, right? You just oogle her body while she gives boring dialogue and then she dies. Like, oh my God. And then they got Emily Blunt. These people are really good actors, by the way. Emily Blunt is relegated to just being the drunk wife. Like, holy shit. She had like one moment where she got to deliver a little monologue there. It was probably the best monologue of the film. Probably one of the best monologues Christopher Nolan's ever written. And then after that, she just walks off the screen and she doesn't come back. We're done. And so, like, what a shame, you know? Oh, to have such talent in front of your screen and to be used as nothing more as eye candy for Florence Pugh in a single scene where she's not a drunken wreck for Emily Blunt. Like, damn.
Now, I do have to say, Robert Downey Jr., I don't know about Louis Strauss, but his performance made me believe that he was Louis Strauss. Okay, a person that was trying to throw Oppenheimer under the bus.
I think he did a good job, but I can't tell because I wasn't really invested in any of his scenes. He mostly dominated the black and white scenes. So like I couldn't really tell whether or not what he was talking about. I didn't care about what was happening. So I don't know. To me, these movies this is the exact opposite of Barbie. Barbie's is like the reason why I like going to movies. It's about big things and it talks to you about important issues without beating you over your head. Ironically, this is one of the things that I dislike the most about movies with Oppenheimer. It is pretentious, it is long, and it thinks it's smart, and it thinks you won't notice how empty the film actually is. I think I liked the idea of Oppenheimer more than I actually liked watching the movie. I like the idea of looking at a man who's building a weapon of mass destruction and pondering the morality of it more than I like the experience of actually watching Christopher Nolan film that. That being said, I wanted to get this out because I know this is going to happen in the future. This movie is going to get all the accolades, right? It's going to sweep the Oscars and all that stuff. And this will be proof to me that the Oscar people are stupid. Like, I'm not saying this is a bad film. I'm just saying it's an empty film. It's not, it's about so much less. It thinks it's about a lot. But it's about nothing. And then Barbie's the exact opposite. Barbie, you think Barbie's gonna be about nothing, and then it's about a shit ton, right? It's about everything.
Like I said, I do not think this is his best work. The actors did do a good job. Cillian Murphy is going to get an Oscar nod for this, and Robert Downey Jr. is going to get a Best Supporting Actor nod for this. I'm gonna have to give this film, I want to say a B minus.
B minus. Yep. I'm giving this one a C, and I think that's a pretty, for me, I think that's a pretty generous C, because I felt every minute of this film. This is a long film, and it felt long. It felt endless. There are times where I kind of zoned out, and then I came back, and I wasn't sure if I missed anything, because everyone is still talking monotone. So for me, I know all the Nolanites are gonna praise this movie to death. You know, Christopher Nolan's probably the only other person other than Zack Snyder who has that kind of like fan base like that. But this is a dull film, guys. It's dull, and it's about so much less than it thinks it's about. And when the movie was given the opportunity to really talk about how devastating and awful that atomic bomb was, it shied away, right? When they dropped the bomb, I was like, okay, so now we're really going to see some devastation, maybe see some real life footage. The movie shied away. It undermines the whole point of the entire film, that Oppenheimer, by purposeful or by accident, is a bringer of death, right, and destruction. And when it came time to make that point, the movie was shy.
The only time that they brought up anything about the death and the number and the masses that it created, they were in that little room and they were talking about it. They asked the casualties and they said 300,000.
Right. They just gave you a cold number. That's it. But if you just Google atomic bomb, okay, the first image is more arresting than that number, 300,000. It's hard to wrap your brain around how many people that is, right? But when you see pictures of the aftermath of the bomb, you really start to understand what it is they built. And this movie doesn't deal with that at all. The closest it gets, like you said, is when he started hallucinating and imagining the bomb dropping in the room that he was in right now. I didn't like how purposely obtuse it was. I didn't like how purposely confusing it was. I didn't understand, again, I've only seen the movie one time, so maybe I need to watch it again. I didn't understand its structure. Why did we bounce back and forth like this? Like, so sometimes I feel that way when Quentin Tarantino does it, but in the end, his structure always justifies itself in the end, where you're like, oh, I see. This one, I never got that. I never got that, oh, I see type of revelation. The movie just kind of ended, and I was like, I guess it's over. It better be, because I've been in this theater for 3 hours, so I guess that's it. If just the name Christopher Nolan gets you sexually aroused like it does for the Nolanites, then you'll love this film. You know, you'll love it. But for everyone else, no.
Hiya, Bobby.
Hi, Tim.
You want to go for a ride?
Shoot him.
Jump in.
I'm a Bobby now. You're a Bobby will. Nothing that I think. It's fantastic.
Thank you so much for clicking on this video. We did another double feature for you. And how'd you like it? Let us know in the comments what you thought. All right, get down there and let us know. And if it's your first time seeing us, we really do appreciate you guys. Our subscriber count is right in the middle. We are almost to that thousand mark, and we need your help. We need your help. Please hit that subscribe button at the bottom. And if you did like this rating and review for both of these films, Barbie and Oppenheimer, please hit that thumbs up. It really does help out the channel. Or you can hit that thumbs down, whichever you choose. It is your opinion, but just remember one thing: it is mostly wrong. The Nolanites are going to be the people who love that film and hate Barbie. Of course.